The hidden law of energetic isolation, why spiritual solitude attracts unseen warfare. There's a reason why the spiritual path feels lonelier than any other. And it's not just because you're walking away from the collective noise or breaking free from illusion. It's because the moment you step into your sovereignty, the moment you say, "I will awaken, even if I have to do it alone," you become visible not just to light, but to everything that feeds on unawakened energy. You think you're walking quietly, but in the unseen realms, your light just became a beacon. And if you don't understand how to protect it, you become a walking target for energetic interference, psychic attacks, and spiritual sabotage.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
So why does this happen? Why is it always the solo spiritual person who gets attacked the most? I'll tell you. When you begin your path alone, you are carrying unshielded frequency. You're awakening, but you're still open. You're powerful, but unguarded. You're vibrating higher, but your field hasn't yet stabilized. And in that vulnerable gap between expansion and embodiment, you become a magnet for disruptive forces. Not all spiritual attacks look like nightmares or chaos. Some look like exhaustion, like confusion, like chronic procrastination, like sudden anxiety that doesn't belong to you. Ever felt that? That's not just life, it's a frequency war. And here's the part most people miss. We are not only attacked for our light, we are attacked for our potential. Especially when we are alone. A spiritually solo person is often carrying dormant codes, gifts, messages, timelines that haven't been activated yet. And dark energies know that. They don't wait until you're powerful to strike. They come when you're becoming. Because once you fully step into your vibration, you're untouchable. So the attacks come early, when you're still doubting, when you're still detoxing, when you're still trying to figure out who you are without the old system. That's the sweet spot for psychic interference. Because confusion is the most fertile ground for infiltration. Now let's get very real. You and I both know that the solo phase is sacred. It's where the real alchemy happens. It's where you first begin to hear your soul clearly. But it's also where most people fall off the path. And not because they're weak, but because they're unaware of the laws of energy. You can't walk alone and stay wide open. You must learn how to seal your field. You must evolve from being a seeker into becoming a fortress. That means creating energetic architecture around your daily life. Not as paranoia, but as precision. Because the more solo you are, the more intentional you must be. So let me ask you something that might shake your worldview. Are you truly walking alone by choice, or have you been isolated by design so that you're easier to weaken? Because not all solitude is sacred. Some of it is engineered, energetically influenced to keep you disconnected from allies, mentors, guidance, and community that could stabilize your frequency. If you've been feeling isolated, attacked, and unseen for a long stretch, it might not be a phase, it might be a pattern. A spiritual lockdown meant to keep you almost awakened, but never activated. That's the most dangerous place to live in. And here's what's wild. The moment you decide to fortify your solitude, to turn your solo path into a sacred mission rather than a secret struggle, everything starts to shift. You begin to feel your power again. You stop leaking energy to invisible forces. You stop doubting your gifts. You stop waking up tired and heavy. Why? Because you're no longer walking as prey. You're walking as presence. You've shifted from, "I'm trying to survive this awakening," to, "I am the vibration that clears this battlefield." You stop being the hunted, and you start becoming the guardian of your own field. There is a specific technique I use, and I'll share it in the next part. It's not something you'll find on YouTube meditations or in journals. It's something I discovered through actual energetic war. Through waking up in the middle of the night with psychic pressure on my chest, and through losing days of energy for no physical reason. Through seeing people in my life suddenly shift into chaos after I reached new levels of clarity. This isn't theory. It's spiritual physics. And when you learn how to work with it, you stop getting attacked and start getting revered by the same forces that used to test you. But before we go into the remedy, let's go deeper into the why. Why does being solo make us such high-value targets? It's because energy wants to move through containers. And when you're solo, there's no one else to help you filter, reflect, or circulate your frequency. That means the energy you generate must be held entirely by you. And if you don't know how to manage, ground, and shield it, it begins to spiral, inviting interference, imbalance, and eventually burnout. It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because no one ever taught you how to engineer your energetic life. So here's your first shift. Stop seeing your solitude as a weakness. Start seeing it as a command center. You were sent to walk alone for a reason, but you weren't meant to walk unguarded. The solo spiritual path is not passive, it's militant. It requires structure, rhythm, and sacred repetition. It means waking up and sealing your field before you check your phone. It means being conscious of the music, the words, and the energies you expose yourself to. It means knowing when to speak, when to fast, when to disappear, and when to transmit. Because you're not just a person anymore. You're a frequency transmitter. And if you don't honor that role, something else will hijack it. In the next part, I'm going to give you a blueprint, a step-by-step energetic protocol that will instantly change the way your field responds to attack. You'll learn how to close your field, how to reset it after psychic interference, and most importantly, how to anchor your vibration so deeply that no entity, no energy, no person can steal your light again. Because this isn't just about being protected, it's about being undeniably radiant and unreachable to low-frequency warfare. The invisible armor, how to seal your energy field and stop spiritual attacks instantly. When I say seal your field, I'm not talking about some vague spiritual metaphor. I'm talking about a real and tangible shift in your electromagnetic field, the part of you that extends beyond your body, invisible to the eyes but fully readable to entities, energies, and people who operate in the unseen. Every time you think, feel, speak, or even remember something powerful, your field responds. It opens or it contracts. It brightens or it dims. And when you're walking the solo path, your field becomes your only defense. No support system, no spiritual group, just you and the frequency you choose to hold. This is why it's not enough to just be high vibrational. You must be fortified vibrationally. The first thing you need to understand is that most spiritual attacks don't come from some evil being out there. They come from open invitations you didn't know you were sending. When you wake up and immediately check your phone, scroll through chaos, compare yourself, and absorb junk energy, you've already cracked your field. When you leave conversations feeling drained but don't clear your space, you've left a door wide open. When you try to heal people who haven't asked, you've just anchored a hook into their karmic field, and now you're entangled with their warfare. Do you see how easy it is to become energetically compromised? Not because you're weak, but because you're unguarded. So how do you seal your field? Here's what I do every single morning, before I even speak. I sit in stillness, and I declare with full presence, I call all of my energy back to me now. From every person, every place, every timeline, every dimension where it has been scattered or stolen. I close every opening in my field, and I seal it with sovereign light. I then visualize a sphere of gold light around my body, strong, silent, impenetrable. I breathe into it until I feel the shift. This isn't imagination, it's instruction. Your field listens to your intention more precisely than anything else in the universe. If you speak with clarity, it responds with power. But if you speak with fear, it will reflect confusion. So speak as one who commands, not one who hopes. Now let me give you something more advanced because you're ready. Throughout your day, you must begin to become aware of field leakage. That's when you're giving off energy without realizing it. You'll notice it as sudden fatigue, mental fog, emotional spikes, or even strange interactions with strangers. Whenever that happens, pause, close your eyes, and say silently, I retract any energy I've unknowingly leaked. I sever any cords of unconscious entanglement. I close my field now. Then exhale deeply. That breath is not just air. It's a command to your nervous system. It resets your electromagnetic integrity. This one practice alone can reduce energetic attack by 90%. Because most attacks don't happen in ritual, they happen in everyday unawareness. But here's the final layer. This is where the warriors are separated from the wanderers. You must begin to live as if your energy is sacred architecture. That means every word is a brick, every emotion is a beam, every thought is a blueprint. You are not just maintaining protection, you are building an energetic temple that others can feel before they even meet you. And in that temple, you decide who enters. You decide what penetrates. You decide when to open and when to remain sealed. This is the ultimate gift of the solo path. Once you stop trying to survive it, you realize you've been given full creative authority over your field. That's not just protection, that's power. The Frequency Fortress: How to Walk Alone and Never Be Spiritually Touched Again. Once you've sealed your field and mastered the art of energetic closure, the next evolution is to become something rare, what I call a frequency fortress. This is the version of you that doesn't just stop spiritual attacks, but becomes untouchable. Not because you're hiding, not because you're guarded in fear, but because your vibration becomes so sovereign, so stabilized, so pure not even the most cunning energetic interference can find a crack to enter. Think about that. Imagine walking into any space, physical or energetic, and knowing no one here has access to me unless I allow it. That's not arrogance, that's mastery. And it's what we are destined to become. Becoming a frequency fortress isn't about doing more. It's about being more precise with what you allow into your space. It means you start treating your attention like currency, your time like a sacred contract, and your emotions like divine technology. When you're truly anchored in your power, you stop oversharing. You stop explaining your path to people who don't walk it. You stop engaging with energies that feel off, even if they're disguised as spiritual. You don't need to fight anymore. You just recalibrate your field, and the interference dissolves on its own. Because here's the truth. You're not being attacked because you're weak, you're being tested because you're unclaimed. And once you fully claim your field, your presence becomes law. There's a subtle but powerful shift that happens once you reach this level. You stop trying to be understood. You stop looking for resonance in every room. You realize that your frequency is not for everyone, and it's not supposed to be. Some people will feel discomfort around you not because you've done anything wrong, but because your field exposes what they haven't faced. And instead of shrinking to make them comfortable, you simply remain centered. You realize that your job is not to be liked. It's to be aligned, and alignment is a far greater shield than any protection spell. When you're in alignment, your energy becomes frictionless, meaning there's no place for hooks, projections, or attachments to land. But let's go deeper. Ask yourself this: what part of you still believes you need to be attacked to prove your strength? Because sometimes we unconsciously allow energetic warfare to continue because we've built our identity around surviving it. It becomes our story, our proof of growth, our badge of honor. But that's a trap. You don't need chaos to validate your evolution. You don't need to keep walking through fire to prove you're sacred. There comes a point on the path where the real flex is peace. Not the peace that comes from avoidance, but the peace that comes from total energetic authority. That's the frequency fortress, not a castle. A living vibration that you wear like armor and exhale like incense. And here's the final truth. When you become this version of yourself, quiet, powerful, anchored, sovereign, you actually become more available to those who are truly meant to walk with you. The right people find you. The right alliances form. The right missions reveal themselves. Not because you went looking, but because your frequency became clear enough to be found by those encoded to walk with it. That's the paradox of the solo path. You walk alone, not to be alone forever, but to become the version of yourself that can no longer be corrupted before you create anything sacred with another soul. The attacks stop not because the world gets kinder, but because your field becomes a place where only truth can live. So now I'll ask you one final time. If you knew that every thought, every breath, every feeling was broadcasting a frequency that either invites interference or declares sovereignty, how would you live differently starting today? Would you speak less and listen more? Would you protect your rest like a ritual? Would you treat your silence like a weapon? Would you stop leaking your light into people who only want to taste it but not honor it? Because the moment you answer that question with action, you stop being a target and you start becoming a force, a walking temple, a sealed vibration, a spiritual presence that cannot be touched, only witnessed. If this transmission echoed something ancient in your bones, it's not just for you. Share it, not for the algorithm, but for the others, the quiet ones, the tired ones, the ones walking alone thinking they're weak when in reality, they're just awakening into their truest power. You are not under attack. You are under construction, and your fortress is almost complete. And now that you've heard everything, now that you've walked with me through the hidden laws of isolation, the sacred practices of sealing your field, and the mastery of becoming a frequency fortress, what remains is not more knowledge, but a decision. Because this path doesn't reward the seeker who knows the most. It rewards the one who embodies the truth with no audience. The one who shows up for their frequency when no one's watching. The one who doesn't need applause to rise and doesn't need chaos to stay committed. That's the final shift from being a solo spiritual person who gets attacked to becoming a silent architect of their own energetic domain. You see, when we talk about attack psychic, energetic, emotional, we're really talking about feedback. Everything that enters your field is either mirroring what you haven't claimed or testing what you've just begun to embody. And the moment you stop taking it personally, the moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim of unseen forces and start seeing yourself as the sovereign filter of your life, everything begins to change. You stop needing to fight darkness because you're no longer a compatible match for it. You stop trying to protect yourself because you've become the protection itself. Let me tell you something I've seen again and again in those who truly walk this path to its highest form. They don't glow with fake positivity. They don't wear white robes and chant mantras all day. They move like thunder. They speak when the energy commands it. They disappear when it's time to recalibrate. They live as if their silence is sacred and their presence is a portal. They're not paranoid. They're precise. They don't fear darkness. They understand it, navigate it, and wield it as contrast to sharpen their light. And that precision is what makes them untouchable, not because nothing challenges them, but because nothing enters them without permission. So if you've been walking alone, misunderstood, tired, if you felt like your energy is always under attack, like your light only brings you more noise, like your path is harder because you're doing it without support, know this: you're not cursed. You're chosen to walk the narrow corridor where only your soul fits. You're being stripped, not to suffer, but to become the kind of vessel that can hold a power most people would collapse under. That's not punishment. That's honor. And the more you lean into this truth, the more your frequency will begin to organize the chaos around you into clarity without effort. You don't need another shield. You don't need to prove your worth to the unseen. You need to stand in your stillness like it's scripture. You need to move like the storm has already passed and you are what remains. You need to speak less and radiate more. Because the spiritual attacks only continue for those who still believe they're vulnerable. But the moment you become the vibration of no entry, the attacks don't stop because the world got lighter, they stop because you did. So I ask you now, in the presence of your own breath, in the silence of your own nervous system, what would your life look like if your energy were no longer something to protect, but something that protects you in every room, every decision, every encounter? What would shift if you truly believed that your frequency is the final word? Because it is. And the path you've chosen, the solo path, the quiet path, the path that feels like exile, is actually the path of initiation into the kind of power that cannot be spoken, only remembered through the presence of those brave enough to walk it. You are not alone, you are ahead, and the world is just beginning to feel the vibration of your return. Now go. If this resonated, don't just like it. Send it like a signal to the others who walk in silence. The ones who think they're being punished when in truth they're being positioned to carry a frequency that only solitude can birth. This is your moment. This is your medicine. And now you move like you've already arrived.